February 25th, 2020 Town Council meeting. Roll call.
Andy Schaefer.
Here.
Andy Key.
Here.
Trey Roby. Luke Gear.
Present.
Tyson Hacking.
Here.
Elisa Granger.
Here.
Keely Ellis.
Here.
Tyson, would you mind leading us in that invocation, please?
Our dearest God, Heavenly Father, we're so very grateful for this day to be together for Town Council. We ask Thee to bless us that we can make appropriate decisions and that can help foster growth in our community. We're grateful for our military and the sacrifices that they make. We ask Thee to bless them and protect them. We're also so very grateful for this wonderful town and land that we live. Protect our freedoms. We love Thee and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Lisa, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 5A, discussion action to approve the minutes of the February 11th, 2020 meeting.
I thought they looked accurate, so I will motion that we approve the minutes from the February 11th, 2020 meeting.
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Luke, second by Alyssa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Item 6A, petitions of public input. Tim Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, and members of the audience. I stand before you tonight on behalf of the Rangeley Rural Fire Protection District, of which I have served on now for 12 years. I've been term limited twice on that board and been reappointed on because of not much interest in folks serving on the board. And currently, this year, we have 4 seats available on the board. The people that are serving on it currently are Paul Fortunato. He does not have to run. He's finishing out a term. But Leonard Lane, who has moved away, we have a vacant seat there, but I believe Mrs. Melissa Dembowski is going to fill that seat. Myself, Matt Grenfield, who also has been term limited twice. We've both been on there about 12 years. And Mr. Clayton Gore is up for election, and I'm not sure if Clayton's going to run yet or not. He hasn't indicated, but I think if we twist his arm hard enough, he probably would do it if need be. But as stated, the board of directors here a couple months ago looking at our finances and looking at our long-range plan and goals for the fire district. The fire district was formed in 1973. And it was formed with a 0.5 mill levy, or it was adjusted through the county assessed valuation to what the department's needs were for each year up until around 1997 when Tabor hit. And when Tabor hit, a mill levy had to be written up and passed, approved by voters, and that was 0.874 mills. And we've been operating on 0.874 mills since 1997. Which is quite a few years, and it's getting to the point where in 10 years, if we continue to follow our current plan of replacing equipment from the handout I've given you, I'm not going to go through everything, but you see our oldest vehicles in 1995, and then we got some 97s, and then it goes up to 2007, 2008. Just a few years ago as a board, we put our minds together and we actually did some creative financing. We got rid of our open air ladder truck, which was outdated and needed to be replaced, along with a pumper truck, where we had to replace the old pumper truck because we just couldn't fix it to work anymore. And due to new industry standards and the way the feds and everything, the rules are written with fire departments, we have to continue to purchase equipment through this plan. And with that, if we continue on that by 2031, if we stick with this and buy the equipment we need to replace, the fire district will be out of money. But with that open air truck and that bumper truck, we were able to put together about $1 million in funding through financing, donations, and we've had those fire trucks paid off in about 3 years' time. But 2 years ago, and I think the town can attest to this, I went to the Special Districts Association conference and was talking to the USDA, the United States Forest Service, Department of Local Affairs, told them what our problems are and what our needs were, and the first thing they asked is, what is your mill? And when I said .874, they about fell out of their chairs and said, well, in order for you guys to even get considered with us, you need to raise your mill levy up to show that the community is willing to invest in the department and in their community before we'll even address giving you grants in the future. So we highly recommend you seek out raising your mill. They didn't say what to raise it to and what to do, but we went back and we looked at our finances and looked at what we've got, and we're looking at going from .874 and asking the voters to go up to 2 mills in May of this year. And what that would mean right now under the current mill at .874, if you have a $200,000 home value in today's assessed valuation, just know that if that evaluation goes down, you know, that the numbers change. And if they go up, the numbers change. So you can't really say, well, in the crystal ball, this is what it's going to be in a year's time. But currently, right now, with a $200,000 value home, you pay $12.59 a year for taxes in the fire district. If this is approved, what will happen is that will double to $28.80 per year per home that's $200,000 value. If it doesn't pass, you know, we'll have to put our erasers and pencils to work and try and extend the life of this equipment as far as we can, and if we're able to do it, we can go all the way to 2042. But that's saying that we're not going to have any major catastrophes, or we're not going to have, you know, certain things happen. You just never know. But some of the things that we have to do by law, if you turn to page 2 and at the top, is like SCBA's. We replaced them in 2011. And in 2025, we have to replace our SCBA's, and that's at a cost of $250,000. We do have a fund balance, and we've protected the fund balance well as a board. And then if you look, 2013, we have to replace the turnout gear, which is 35 uniforms, and the replacement cost on that in 2023 is $175,000. And wildland boots for the firefighters is $10,000 that we have to replace these boots. This stuff is not cheap. I might add as a side note, for the 12 years I've been on this board, I think I've missed maybe 2 meetings, which accounts for about, I've attended 144 some meetings in my 12 years of being on this board. And by law, when you serve on these boards, the state says you have to pay each board member $100 per meeting that they attend, which we have 5 board meetings, and that's $6,000. And I, being the chair, and the board members that have served on this have all agreed that we don't take that payment. We turn it back into the fire department because we know how important the money is for the fire department. And, you know, point blank, I love this community, and so do the rest of the folks that serve on that, as well as the firefighters. I've never met a better group of people than the group we have in Rangeley. When the call comes in, we always have folks willing to step up and go on runs no matter what time of the day or night it is. And they see real life stuff. I mean, they see life, they see death, and they see it all. I mean, it's no different than a firefighter. I mean, a police officer or somebody who works in a hospital that deals with this type of stuff. It's real, and where we live in a remote area here, you know, we have stuff happen, as you well know. So that's it, basically, in a nutshell. If you were to have any other questions for me after this, feel free to call me. If it's budget numbers and numbers such as that, I'm going to defer that to Miss Linda Gordon, who is our administrative assistant for the fire district. She is really the nuts and bolts of keeping us straight as far as our budgets go and what we do as a fire district. She's phenomenal, and I wished we could clone her because she does such a wonderful job for the fire district and the community as a whole. So with that, does anybody have any questions or comments?
That doesn't seem like a very big increase, really, to me, for what you guys.
It's not a huge increase, but it's something that is an increase. It's something that I take very seriously and take it very personal because of the fact that, I'm the chair of that board, and we're asking for folks to, dig a little bit more in their pockets to help support it. But it's just our economy and the way it is. I think it'll be substantial enough to see us quite a ways down the road. One of the things that have come to light, and because of Mr. Andy Schaefer, who was the prior chief, in working with these wildland fires, is that, I had misspoke at the first time I gave this presentation to the firefighters, where I thought, property owners could say, you know what, I don't want to pay taxes into the fire district, so I'm going to opt out. But fire districts are something you cannot opt out of as a private landowner. You can opt into them. You just can't opt out. The only one you can opt out of not paying taxes on is if you own, or that you do opt out on if you own more than 40 acres of land, is for the Rec and Park District. So it was kind of a learning curve for me also. For years, I was under the understanding that you could opt out as a landowner off of these special districts, but the only one, and it's by law, I think, that the Rec and Park District, if you own more than 40 acres, you're opted out of that. So it's quite an interesting way they set this up. I think that, the state and communities really need to look at how these tax structures are, especially in your energy industry. I think the state really needs to look at adjusting that so it's not so unfair for like oil, gas, and coal, because I think it's a little heavy on that. But, like I've said before, if we were coming 10 years ago, which we had talked about it seriously of coming, but, the hospital was coming, or the school district was coming for mill increases, and we just didn't want to double up. So we've held on this long to where, we could go 10 years, but we're not going to be able to replace equipment. And it's going to be hard for us to get grants to support the things we need to do as far as our equipment. What you're saying, we've got some equipment, some of that turnout gear that might not be worn that much, and it's actually kind of new. 10 years, they say, you got to get rid of it. You can't keep it. It's got to go. Got to buy brand new. And the open air cab ladder truck, that was understandable. We needed to get that thing out of here because it was just unsafe. So, a lot of this stuff, it's hard to make these decisions. And I admire you folks for doing what you do, and thank you for your service, because this is not easy. What we all do is serving on boards. So.
I just have a question for you, Tim.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
When you talk to the folks about grant funding and stuff like that, did they say if you go to $2 million, you're more likely to receive those grants, or did they recommend a threshold for that?
I asked them for a threshold, and they says, well, whatever your community needs are. So it's like, okay, well, let's give us, the $2 million. Well, right now in
because that'll help increase your fund,
right?
And that's what they look at too when you're considering those grants. So.
Exactly, because if you look at that first paragraph, the .874 brings in $250,000, and right now we'll dip into our fund balance to fund some of the stuff depending on the year, to where it'll double it up to $500,000, and that'll help us to forecast and say, okay, we're going to 2 new brush trucks. Which, I think the brush trucks here, we got 2 1997 brush trucks that are starting to become antiquated. You can only put so many new parts on them to make them work, is about $250,000 for those 2 units. So it's like, well, which one do you go for first here, the turnout gear or this new equipment? And you don't know. So, this gives us a little bit more wiggle room, and that's where I think that this will take the fire district, as long as the board is judicious about what they do and really look at what they're doing and speak with the firefighters, on a monthly basis of, is this what you guys really need? Because to me, it's life, limb, and everything else, because it just, without the leadership of Andy and Jasper and the other firefighters, like I was beginning to say, if we have a wildland fire, like we had one a year or so ago here outside of town, it was on private land. And next thing you know, and I hadn't had this chance with Andy yet, I had to work with a Type 2 team one time when Andy couldn't make it to sign the paperwork, because you have to sign off on this stuff. And when you're fighting a fire on private land, the minute you're out there, you call in for help. If you do not turn this over to the sheriff's department, the price tag starts running up for the fire district, where it could bankrupt the fire district. So I've always said to Andy and Jasper, call Anthony right away if this is getting out of hand, because you get a tanker coming in and a few of those wildland crews where we had to provide, I think, it was about 126 meals, I think it was, Andy, wasn't it? Yeah, we had to provide food 3 meals a day for a few days for those firefighters, because we didn't turn it over right away to the sheriff's department because we didn't know. And next thing you know, you're sitting in a meeting with, the heads of BLM on the wildland fire side of it going, well, how are you guys going to feed these guys? What are you talking about? You have to pay for it. And now I think they're changing the standards where automatically on these fires, whether it's on private or public, they're requiring a tanker right away. You're paying for it. So it's an interesting thing that keeps revolving daily and yearly, and especially with the fires that we've been having and the hotter the West is getting. It could get real interesting, but sign it over to Anthony, the sheriff. He's got a bigger checkbook than we do, and he has, steps he can take to go back to the feds. But, small.
But still, the fire district could be held financially responsible for
Sure.
a certain part of that.
Sure.
And so if we are held to a few of those throughout the year, that could put us in the hole quick.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, I think with our legislatures, they got to look at these small towns and go, we need to do something here to take the weight off of their shoulders, because of the fact that we could get put in a real unfair disadvantage real quick with some of these fires out here. And we don't only just do fires, we do the scuba, or we training on the scuba. And I mean, we recovered 2 bodies in the last, 5 years, and 3 over the time the fire district has been formed. And if we don't have that here, the nearest one, I think, is Grand Junction. So we do provide some interesting services. Truth be told, the retirement budget going into the fire department at the other end of the county is bigger than our operating budget. So it kind of puts it into perspective. So, any other questions? If not, thank you for your time. And like I said, if you have any other questions or anything, just give me a holler and I'll try and get them answered the best I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Any other public input? Nobody? Lisa, any changes to the agenda?
No.
We don't have any public hearings, community and board meetings?
We had the RDA, RDC meeting since our last board meeting. Pretty good conversation. The RDA, RDC went through a SWOT analysis, and I think we're really becoming a lot more dynamic. We also pulled Jim back on that one, so he gets to be on that one as well. I don't know if Kaylee would like to talk about some of those. I think we'd like to do a joint meeting with the town council. I'll let Kaylee maybe talk about that, since she's our vice president.
So at the first of the year, we had talked about the SWOT analysis, and then we conducted our SWOT analysis. And following that, too, knowing that the town funds the RDA, RDC in their projects, I thought it was a good idea that we held joint meetings twice a year, so that in a work session type forum where then RDA, RDC reported back to town like, hey, here's where we're at. This is what we're working on. These are the things that are priority for the year. You know, this is what we're looking at long term, and just have those like every 6 months or whatever. So first part of the year and then middle of the year or whatever. And so I think too, Lisa, we kind of talked about when we want to do that here in the next month or so.
Like probably the second meeting in March,
In
the
March.
24th, I think.
Mhm.
So everybody. And what kind of talked about is that town council did a SWOT analysis last year. Unfortunately, other things took over, and I wasn't able to hire a marketing coordinator, which now we have Jeannie on board. So I feel like we can kind of start moving forward on a lot of the plans we discussed and unfortunately weren't able to act upon. So I will forward the town council SWOT analysis out to everyone, and also the RDA, RDC, so we can contrast and compare, and then maybe have some frank conversations. Cncc is becoming very dynamic about expanding their programs, and of course I think it's really important to support them, because any expansion they can do is going to be great for our community. So I think there's a lot of things that are really on the verge of becoming really good developments in our community, and we don't want to be holding any of it back just for lack of information. So I think that would be a great way to start.
Other thing too that the RDA RDC is doing this year that I don't know that they've done in the past is we, in our SWOT analysis, identified things and opportunities that we wanted to pursue, and then created committees for those things, so that it wasn't the whole RDA RDC trying to move these initiatives forward, but there's committees of 3 to 4 people that are working on specific projects within the RDA RDC to help move them forward, and see if we can't gain some traction on those projects, and then report back once a month when the RDA RDC meets.
I think it'll have better buy-in too, because when you have one person bringing things forward, that's just their ideas. It's not the group, and I think that gives it a lot better focus when everybody's participating.
What kind of projects are you talking about?
Yeah, so some we identified was aviation and expansion of that, so in partnership with CNCC. One we also are looking at is a call center, and with the recent announcement of CNCC receiving that $500,000 for a cybersecurity program, we think that that ties in really well to what CNCC is working on as well. Knowing that they're 18 months to 3 years out before that program is fully launched, it gives us some time to really start looking at, potential opportunities there for businesses. We're also looking at investment opportunities within our vacant buildings, and how do we get those filled downtown. Can't think of.
I don't have it.
Those
right in
were
front of
like
me,
the
but
top 3 I can think
even
of.
though the committees are working
a service training.
Right.
So like a boots on the ground type training. So when people come and visit our community and they go and come and go, and they ask the cashier behind the counter, so what is there to do here? It's not, well, there's nothing to do with Rangeley. These are all the really great things that Rangeley has to offer, and you should go check them out. More frontline worker type training.
Well, and Jeannie's going to obviously interact with all of the special districts and businesses as well. She's going to work really closely with the RDA, RDC, Michaela and Carly, the Rio Blanco economic development people, and whomever replaces Connie with the chamber. And a lot of her ideas geared towards like continuity. If we're going to market our community, let's not be doing it in such a disfraction way that we're not all working towards similar goals. So I think just bringing all of those things together are really going to make us a lot more dynamic.
Andy, did you have anything you wanted to add? Andy,
No, Keely did a great job kind of summing up what the thought process is. There's a little more to it, but there's a place to talk about that.
So I think the idea of having it on the 24th of March would be that the RDA, RDC is going to bring forth their ideas on kind of where they're wanting to go in the near future, long term. And then with the meeting of the council, I think that at the same point, we need to bring our ideas back into it too, if you have ideas. So that's going to basically give us a month to think about it. And if you have any directions that you would like to see the town go at that point, then I think that all needs to be brought forth with the council at the same time. with RDA and RDC. The town has hired Jeannie as a full-time employee, and I think that she's our marketing and business development also. So I think both of the RDA, RDC, and the town need to work together to utilize Jeannie as much as we can, whether which entity it may be. Of course, she reports to Lisa's, so I don't know how much her workload's going to be able to do it, but that's the reason that we hired a full-time person to try to help take care of that in-between process. So whatever the RDA, RDC needs, we need to see if Jeannie can help us by any means. And we also have the Rio Blanco. We can't leave those guys out of it too.
And actually, that was, I don't know about how Andy and Keeley feel, but I felt like that was probably our best RDA, RDC meeting that we've had in a really long time.
Probably since I stepped on over 2 years
All
ago.
of our members were present. Rio Blanco County was there. Mm-hmm. Jeannie was there, and they gave reports about what they're working on. And I feel like all the members were not just showing up, but they were present and ready to get down and do some really hard work. So.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Any other community and board meetings?
The community outreach meeting is on Monday, and I'll remind everybody about that. Our Monday,
Okay.
And then we have a public safety committee meeting on Tuesday, just for updates from the police department.
Okay. Tuesday of next week, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll also send something out about that to remind everyone.
Is there any other reports from council?
I would just add that last week Senator Bennett was in Rangeley on the Rangeley campus for Cncc and actually met with a lot of our local community leaders from county commissioners. Lisa Peering and Jeannie Caldwell were there and actually had really great discussion with him and feel like he heard us, which was encouraging. And then also had a meeting with Senator Rankin on Saturday, which same thing. Andy Key was there. I was there too. Jeff Rector was there, so one of our county commissioners was there as well. And it was a beneficial meeting as well. I think he also got to hear from this region as a whole, Moffett County, Craig, Rangeley, and Rio Blanco County, about some of the struggles we're facing, and especially with the recent tri-state closure announcement and how, as a region, we're looking at moving things forward. So that's all I've got.
Very good. Anybody else? Andy?
I'm good.
All right. Reports from officer or supervisor reports. Janet.
Good evening. So I have been working on the town flower order, and it will be finalized this week for a tentative planting the last weekend of April at the community gardens. It's always a fun day where community members come out. We spend the day planting the town flowers, and then the community garden does a barbecue. So all community members are welcomed, and we could use the help, and we'll keep notifying people as we get closer to the date. I'm also planning to plant all of the bump outs as soon as the weather breaks in March. So I'm working on doing a little bit of research on some drought tolerant plant material and trees that will give us a little bit more diversity, work better in our environment, the cold winters, harsh summers, and clay soils. So I'm working on that. And then for White River Village, right now we have an apartment that is vacant. We're working on a rehab, and that will be done probably the middle of March. For the month of January, we processed 1 tenant recertification, prepped the hallways for painting. We've got everything down. It's prepped, ready to go. We've just run into snow removal, so it's kind of been put on the back burner, but that'll be done soon. We changed all the filters and thermostat batteries in all of the apartments, cleaned and organized the utility closet. We had a problem with the surveillance system, so we got that repaired. And of course, there's been a lot of snow removal, and maintenance, of course, is always ongoing. We had a Stop the Bleed and AED instruction class at White River Village on January 29th. Had a really good turnout for that, so that was good. We started chair yoga for the seniors on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. And the whole community is actually invited to join in on that. On Friday, March 6th, Tom Gangle will be there to do, he's with Mind Springs Health. He's going to be doing the Building Resiliency and Happiness class, and the community is also invited to attend that. Liquor licensing, we processed 2 renewal liquor licenses, and we also have a new liquor license that we're working on, and 1 special event permit. We also have the building and grounds people working on the Sagewood townhome that is vacant right now and getting all the repairs done to get that ready to rent. Any questions?
I was just going to add, Janet's done a great job of trying to create events for the White River Village residents. You know, sometimes we forget that they get lonely and just would like to have some opportunities to, you know, just interact with other people in the community. So she's really tried to put together a really good program and get things for them to do. And we're going to also try and get some of the maybe college kids or other community groups to go down and interact with them. And that's really important to our seniors. So I just want to commend her for that.
The Family Dollar actually took down Valentine's for everybody, balloons and Valentine's for everybody, and then there was one of the radio stations that came and brought Valentine's for everybody on Valentine's Day, so that was really nice.
So Janet, you said this chair yoga is available to the community?
Yeah, we've had other seniors that have come and wanted to show some interest in joining in. It's for seniors. It's just about 20 minutes and, you know, just a little stretching and meditation there that Tara Patch comes and does it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So how are you advertising? I mean, how are you
Just
getting
on
this out?
Facebook, and I took some flyers over to the Rodino Center also, and word of mouth.
I think it's great.
Yeah, they really like it. It's fun.
Great, thank you, Jenna.
Yep.
Lisa?
I was going to add too to the update that Keely and Andy talked about, Senator Bennett and Rankin. They not only talked about Cncc, but they talked about community things as well. And so we did get to get some input in there. Just like Tim mentioned, they want you to make sure that you have the funds available and you know, always, that's why we talk about rates with our utilities as well. But a lot of things that hold us back too is our median wage or income for our community keeps us from applying for lots of grants. So they said they would really get into that and research it, because a lot of the rural initiatives that they put out, we don't get opportunities to participate in because of that median wage. So they did hear us on some other issues as well, which I thought was great. The Rio Blanco Water Conservancy District, I don't know if you all got that in the mail. They're going to just have a community meeting on Thursday night at the hospital to talk about a rural water system. I did call Alden because I wasn't completely clear about it, and he said they're just exploring ways to maybe expand the potable water. They also have their board meeting tomorrow night that they'll talk about that as well. So if anybody's interested and would like to understand more about, you know, the drive for them to put those meetings out there, that'd probably be a good time to go and listen or discuss.
The comment that was made about the expanding the potable water hasn't been something that the town has talked about with Alden. So I don't know really where he came out with that, but that's not something, you know, I mean, the potable water is a town of Rangeley's thing. It's not the water users. So I'm not sure where he came out with that, but
Yeah, I'm not completely certain either, but
just clarification on that.
it's maybe just something good to explore. Like I said, I'm not really, we haven't had huge discussions on that, so that'd have to be down the road. We will actually be presenting for our water line project with DOLA on March 17th and 18th. They did initially want us to come in person to Denver, but since then they've just encouraged us to do it remotely. So if that's the case, we'll probably do that, just because travel to Denver sometimes can be a little demanding.
Do you think us being present would give
We
us any
asked
edge?
if that would make a difference, and she said the director was really encouraging everybody to just testify remotely. We actually have got, there's like 15 points that you have to kind of meet to make your project viable, and we have all of our points, you know, in place, and we also rank pretty high under the energy impact points just because of where we are and what our major, you know, revenue source is for income. So we rank pretty high. I think we'll be really competitive. I would really be surprised if, you know, we get kicked to the curb, but that's always a chance that we take. So I think we are going to go ahead and testify remotely, but Jocelyn's also going to put together a PowerPoint and send to them just so they'll have something to read and look at it. And just, you know, our track record's great. We don't apply for grants and let them sit there. We use them and we finish them out and we do it in a timely manner. So I think our track record is good. Ginger Scott with the Northwest Transportation Group also sent out an email about multi-module funding through CDOT. Our district has a pot of about $993,000, and they're only had 2 grants apply for about $300,000 of that. So Jeff Rector also kind of sent out a reminder. So Jocelyn and I are going to go back to the drawing board because we think there's an opportunity for us not only to maybe match the other CDOT grant that we have, which they said you can use those dollars for, but possibly we could get the engineering done for the rest of the trails loop for CNCC. We could go ahead and get the engineering done for the loop that goes down into Ridgeview. Is that the right?
Are you talking about behind CNCC?
That goes down the backside. So if we could get the engineering done for that on that grant, that would be very helpful in moving that trails forward. But we'll look at all of our different projects. That's due, I think, April 1st. So we'll have to be pretty swift with what we would put together. But if there's money out there and nobody else wants it, we'll go for it. I mean, definitely. So we'll find something to apply for. AG&C also reminded all of our members to make comments on the NEPA grant. I believe I put something on. So that's the National Environmental Policy Act. They're going to be making some changes, and after they sent out that reminder, the commissioners kind of let everyone know too that they've hired a firm to maybe represent Rio Blanco County and make comments on these changes that they're putting forward. So his suggestion was if you read through this and have anything that you really feel strongly about, to maybe forward it to one of the commissioners or the county, and they will make sure that that's addressed in our response. So he feels like, and from the little bit I have read through that, I think these are good changes. We just need to make sure that they stay focused and don't try to take things away from us, and that they're doing things that will protect it but not restrict, you know, use as well. So I think that's something that you probably would like to get into and read. And I can send all of these electronically as well, just so that if there's a link, you can get in there and see it a lot easier than having to type that in. Also, next week on Wednesday, March 4th, there is going to be a meeting in Craig. It's called, but it's just transition for Coal Advisory Committee will be there, and there'll be representatives from Governor Polis's administration, DOLA, and the Department of Labor. I think it is geared around the closing of those plants, but the Just Transition Committee is also supposed to address any kind of communities facing energy transition. So I don't know that that would not be a bad meeting for some of us to go to. I'll try and plan and go to that, but I think that committee could maybe assist us, you know, because we're going through energy transition too, and I don't think that's going to change in the near future. So I think even though it might not be affecting us directly, I think that might be a good meeting for a few of us to attend as well. CML in downtown Colorado will also have a special financing tour on March 19th and 20th, which will be in Grand Junction, and they very rarely come over to the Western Slope. But they've got some funding and development ideas about how URAs like the RDA can maybe take advantage of ways to improve our downtown and put projects together. So I'm going to also talk about that with members of the RDA, and Jeannie and I will probably look at that and see if one of us can attend that as well. Jeannie's been just out there beating the pavement with Connie and on her own too, talking to as many of the special districts as she can and just getting to know everybody. She toured all of the schools and the hospital and talked to everybody there, and just to get, you know, their take on everything. She and I both attended AGNC, and they had a really dynamic speaker from the city of Montrose, and so we're also planning a meeting to go down and talk to her. They are in an opportunity district, and obviously that's where sometimes they focus, but her presentation said they got into a lot of the marketing for the community, and it created a lot of marketing ideas and investment opportunities for people that just want to come and invest in their community. Obviously they have a different environment than we have, but I think that's where we've really lacked, you know, getting our community out there, is marketing it and finding people that want to be in this kind of lifestyle. I mean, almost everybody that moves here just really talks about our community, is about how our people interact and how they feel safe in our community, and we just aren't putting it out there like we should. So I think Jeannie really wants to focus on that. She's been working on the gravel grinder with Jocelyn, and also with Connie and all the upcoming events that she already has in place. She's been working very closely with Carly and Michaela, and they're going to plan monthly or bi-weekly meetings and make sure that she's interacting with them and utilizing them to the best of our, you know, abilities as well. She's also working on all of our social media, the Facebook, Twitter. She's already made some great changes to our Facebook account. You should go out. I forget how many hits she had on the picture that she posted. Like 696 people were reached. And I don't know Facebook dynamics very well, but I mean, she got a lot of likes, got a few comments that were odd, but we got rid of those. And the state will be working on migrating our website at the latter part of this week or first of next week, and Jeannie and Maribel will be working with them so they can maintain our website without having a third party do that, which I think is really doable. We shouldn't have any problems with that. The Colorado Oil and Gas Commission is moving forward with their new mandate, which is to regulate rather than foster oil and gas, and they have a comment period, so I would encourage everybody to get in there and read on that, and I'll also send that out electronically as well. And we're just keep working on the snow. All the departments have a lot of projects going on, and once the snow gets gone, we'll start working on summertime projects. So, a lot. Any questions or comments?
Thanks, Lisa. Item 13, old business. I'm not aware of any. Item 14A, new business. Discussion action to approve the January 2020 financials.
Looks like we're kind of far off on the wastewater and the water. Is that accurate?
Well, you're not going to use much water in the winter time. That's pretty.
Well, but it's just budgeted like each month is, you take a year and you're just budgeting it out each month is, so it's going to catch up, what you're saying.
I mean, our water, yeah, your revenues are going to be cyclical for everything. Water in the winter time is not very high, but in the summertime, the usage will go up. So, and a lot of times in the early part of the year, they start buying the things that they'll need for the whole year. So sometimes the expenses in January might be much higher than they would the rest of the year. So try not to look at it as a month to month, because very rarely we don't get all our revenue for the general fund until August. So we're going to be in the hole, you know, there. We definitely are not running like a, you know, so
I got you.
try to take that into account when you're looking at the financials.
Big red numbers just scary.
Well, unfortunately, our revenues are not going to come in at the same time as our expenses. But at the end of the year, we have always come out in the black a lot of times when we budgeted in the red. So I feel really confident that we'll be in the right places.
Any other questions on the financials?
I'll motion that we approve the January 2020 financials.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Luke, second by Keeley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14B, discussion action to approve the special event permit for the CNCC Foundation Dinner. Yes, absolutely.
So this is our 16th annual foundation dinner, pretty much running it the same way we have for years. Just the dinner and the auction, silent auction, and live auction as well. We've changed up a little bit about who is bartending. I know that's an important thing. We have 3 of our faculty members who are actually going to be doing the bartending that night. There was some concern last year that there might have been minors that were served. It was not an issue. We have a lot of students who are a little bit older in our aviation and DH programs, and I think those are the students that people were saying they thought were underage, but our faculty will be checking IDs. They know the students pretty well, but anybody that looks under 30, that sort of thing, again, will be what we're doing in terms of the bar. I don't know what else you need to know.
How are you going to monitor? Are you going to put a stamp on someone who is not of legal age?
We hadn't talked about that yet, but that would be something we'd had to do. We don't typically have a lot of people who come that are underage, so it's not something we've dealt with a lot before. We can do that, certainly.
I just didn't know if that was brought up.
No, it wasn't brought up. If that's an issue, we can come up with an idea for that. But like I said, we very rarely have anybody underage that attends anyway.
Looks like Chief Amblin has said that they didn't have any problems last year, and
Yep.
it's run like all special events. He's okay with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say that has nothing to do with it is thank you for the cruiser donation.
Sorry, I forgot.
Appreciate that.
We did donate the Charger to the Ranger program, and we took it up there this past Friday and took some pictures. We kind of had earmarked that for the airport, but after discussions, we felt like that was a better vehicle for the Ranger program because the lights would have had to come off, and they wouldn't have been used for anything. So we did get that up there, and they were very excited to have it and drive it around. So that'll be a great addition to their fleet.
Absolutely. So thank
And
you.
I think on the same,
Reminding me of that.
Yes.
I think on the same token as that, Lisa did check with the commissioners, and they're going to be able to
They will
get a
have a
car
car
out
out
there.
there.
So we will have a car out there. It's just not
Right.
going to be our Charger.
And I think we've got some vehicles that we will be retiring soon that then we could go ahead and put out there this next year.
Pretty good. So I would like to make a motion to approve the special events permit for the CNCC Foundation Dinner.
Second.
Motion's been made by Alyssa, second by Luke. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Informational items. I take it they're looking to gather wild horses.
Hopefully a lot.
And it's basically saying get it back down to the manageable herd, which is a good. Not enough, but it's good. Any idea, Lisa? I didn't see anything on the White River Restoration Partnership CNCC Weiss March 10th.
So they have planned that in the evening, and so that's River's Edge, I'm pretty sure. And they're going to bring in some people from the Utah side because they want to try and coordinate that. So I think that would be a great meeting to attend. I'll try and definitely be there as well. They really do some good restoration projects, and they have grants already that they've got in place for getting rid of the tamarask, and the last meeting we went to was really good. Then they have some volunteers that get involved as well, kind of like the group that's out of Colburn. I'm going to think of. But the group that they work with is out of Steamboat. I'm sorry, it's got a blank on it right now, but it's young people that work.
Job Corps.
Pardon?
Job Corps?
Yes. But the group that they worked with is out of Steamboat, but same type of situation. So it's a lot of that, what they call weed trees down from the river, and they've done a couple projects that I didn't really even realize close to Rangeley, kind of down by Texas Beach, and then one not too far upriver as well. So they just want to work with the whole White River community. So I think they've invited some of the people from Utah to attend that meeting as well. And then if anybody hasn't responded, there really need just a few more people for the community planning for disaster recovery, which I think would be a great meeting. I think there's people from both the county and the town attending, but if anybody's interested and hasn't signed up for that, I think they just need a few more people to make that class a go.
I'm planning on attending. I haven't signed up yet.
Okay.
Any other questions on the informational items?
Oh, and the energy symposium, he said they're about sold out. So if anybody wants to attend that, let me know. And if nobody does, I'll make sure that somebody from the town attends. I went last year and they had some really good speakers.
When is that again, Lisa?
It's in Rifle, April 15th and 16th.
Lisa, can you put me down for that?
Mm-hmm.
Item 16A, Planning and Zoning Board vacancy is an ongoing agenda item. Scheduled announcements. Is there anything else that needs to be brought in front of the council? We'll adjourn at 7:52.